Hello children! Welcome to my channel. My name is Miss Harpreeet. The story we are going to read today is called Alligator Baby. This story is about a girl called Kristen. Kristen's mother just had a baby. But when she came home with the baby and asked Kristen to look at it, she was surprised. This is not a people baby! It's an alligator baby! Did Kristen lose her baby? Will she be able to find it? Let's check. But before that, let's look at the part of the book. That's the front cover. We've got the back cover, the spine of the book, and the title of the book, Alligator Baby, written by Robert Munsch. And you see the beautiful pictures are illustrated by Martchenko. Let's start. Alligator Baby. One night, Kristen's mother woke up and yelled, "A baby! A baby! I'm having a baby!" Kristen's father jumped off the bed, zoomed around the room, got dressed, and grabbed Kristen's mother by her hand. They ran downstairs to the car and drove off really fast. Unfortunately, they got lost. They didn't go to the hospital. They went to the zoo. Oops. But it was okay. Kristen's mother had a lovely baby. Then they drove back home and locked the front door. Blam, 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 blam. Kristen opened the door. There was her mother holding something wrapped all up. "Kristen, would you like to see your baby brother?" "Oh, yes," said Kristen. So Kristen lifted up bottom of the blanket. She saw a long green tail and said, "That's not a people tail." Kristen lifted the middle of the blanket and saw a green claw. "That's not a people claw," she said. Kristen lifted the top of the blanket and saw a long green face with lots of teeth. "That's not a people face. That's not my baby brother." "Now, Kristen, don't be jealous," said her mother. Just then, the baby reached up and bit Kristen's mother on the nose. "Ah!" she yelled. Then the baby reached up the father and bit on his nose. He yelled, "Ah! That's not a people's baby. That's an alligator baby," said Kristen. "Goodness," said her mother. "We've got the wrong baby." So Kristen put the alligator baby into the fish tank, and her mother and father drove back to the zoo. They came back in an hour and knocked on the door. Blam, 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 blam. Kristen opened the door, and her mother said, "Would you like to see your new baby brother?" "Of course, mother, yes," said Kristen. Kristen lifted the bottom of the blanket, saw a fishy tail. She said, "That's not a people tail." Kristen lifted the middle of the blanket and saw a flipper. She said, "That's not a people flipper." Kristen lifted up the top of the blanket and saw a face with whiskers and said, "That's not a people face. That's not my baby brother." "Now, Kristen," said her mother, "don't be jealous." Just then the baby reached up with its flipper and flapped on the father's face. Whap, 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 whap. He yelled, "Ah! It's a seal baby. We've got the wrong baby." So Kristen put the seal baby in the bathtub, and her mother and father drove back to the zoo. They came back in an hour and knocked the door. Blam, 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 blam. They said, "Kristen, would you like to see your baby brother?" "Oh, yes," said Kristen. She lifted up the bottom of the blanket and saw a very hairy leg and said, "That's not a people leg. Right here." She lifted up the middle of the blanket and saw a very hairy arm and said, "That's not people arm." She lifted the top of the blanket and saw a very hairy face. "That's not a people face. That's not my baby brother." "Now, Kristen," said her mother, "don't be jealous." Then the baby reached up with its feet and grabbed her mother's ear and her father's ear, and they both yelled, "Ah! It's a gorilla baby! We got the wrong baby!" "Let me do it," said Kristen. So her mother and father put the gorilla baby on the chandelier in the living room, and Kristen went off to the zoo on her bicycle. Right with this. First, Kristen looked in the snake cage. No people babies? Right. Then she looked in the wombat cage. No people babies? Okay. Then she went up to the elephant cage. No people babies? Then she stopped and listened. From far away, very far, she heard, "That's more like it," she said. She followed the sound. It was coming from a gorilla cage. Kristen looked at the mommy gorilla and said, "Give me back my baby brother." Gorilla jumped away and wouldn't give the baby back at all. Then the people baby reached up and bit the gorilla on the nose. And the gorilla yelled, "Ah!" and handed the baby to Kristen. Kristen jumped on her bicycle and paddled home. Kristen knocked on the door. Blam, 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 blam. When the parents opened it, she said, "Would you like to see your new baby?" Kristen's mother lifted up the bottom of the blanket and said, "Look, people legs." She lifted up the middle of the blanket and said, "Look, people's hands." She lifted up the top of the blanket and said, "Look, people's face." Kristen's mother picked up the baby and gave it a big hug. And her mother said, "Kristen, Kristen, you got the baby back. Good for you. Thank you, thank you." "But what are we going to do with all these other babies?" yelled Kristen's father. "There is a seal baby in the bathtub. There is a alligator baby in the fish tank and a gorilla baby hanging from the chandelier. We should take them back to the zoo." Kristen looked out of the window, right outside. Uh-oh. "Don't worry, I don't think so. We'll have to do anything at all." And everything was okay until Kristen's mother had twins. I hope you liked the story. I'm glad Kristen found her baby brother and her parents were glad as well. If you like the story, do hit a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time with more fun stories. Till then, see you, take care, bye-bye.